did pick up this week, there's quite a big story actually, that Sky News essentially tried to turn you over, didn't they, in the Centre for Migration Control. Can you explain what happened there?
Yes, it was an incredibly lazy approach. We got an email about 10:30 the night before they planned to publish. Early in the morning, it was said, and he told us to call him and address a litany of mistakes that he'd made, which I'll get to in a second. And there was no way to get in touch with him. We were trying to contact Sky. They were effectively looking to run a hit piece on the Centre for Migration Control data, which we've produced, which unequivocally shows that there is a very strong link between foreign nationals and crime nationwide and in London. And I think really the progenitor of this whole national discussion that has taken place was a piece we did with The Sun, which showed that 40% of charges and cautions that have taken place in London in the last few years were of foreign nationals, despite them only representing 25% of the population. So there's been a big discussion about that. This journalist came to us. He'd really misunderstood and blurred the lines between different types of population within the migrant community. So an individual born overseas is classed as a foreign-born individual. An individual that gets given British citizenship far too easily after 6 years, I might add, is therefore classed as a British national. Those that don't yet have British nationality are classed as foreign nationals. And what he'd looked to do is to sort of overrepresent the population of foreign nationals, which when you look at the data which we extracted from the Ministry of Justice, which showed that foreign nationals were committing a disproportionate amount of crimes, especially sexual offences, would reflect the actual scale of and the rate of criminality amongst certain nationalities. So the statistics that I'm sure some of your viewers will have heard, that Afghan nationals are 22 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual
22 times more
22 times more likely than a British national. There's statistics, Eritreans 20 times more likely. Look, within that British conviction number, there's of course a majority of convictions are still British nationals, but I think it's very
we are in Britain.
Well, exactly. But I think it's also really important to notice that within British conviction figures are a large number of migrants that have been given a bit of paper that says to them, you are a British citizen, and therefore when Ministry of Justice is processing those convictions, they're classed as British nationals. Therefore, if we're going to be comparing sort of relative crime rates, we have to be using data on nationality rather than data on country of birth. I would ideally like to see us move to a state where we are talking about country of birth rather than nationality, but that data just doesn't exist in the Ministry of Justice, and thus we have to use what's called a denominator, a kind of population size, which reflects the fact that we're talking about nationality, which is foreign nationals. Anyway, this guy had completely blurred the lines on that. He was going to run a piece on us. He'd gone to the ONS and tried to obtain a quote from them. He'd obtained a quote from them. I then spoke to the ONS, and they didn't realise that the quote that they provided was being used for the basis that it was being used. He'd effectively lied to them to elicit a quote responding to something that they weren't even aware what they were responding to. We had also, I think it's worth noting, the BBC, their data editor, was also discussing our statistics. He was discussing them on PM today. I spoke to him on the phone. He admitted unequivocally, yes, this data shows there is a link between foreign nationals and higher rates of crime. They are overrepresented in crime statistics. He goes on to, he's talking to Amol Rajan and who's the other chap? Anyway, some kind of other commentator. And he says there's no clear evidence that there is a link here. And I think, unfortunately, we've reached a point where they are still not prepared to address the fundamental statistics that foreign nationals are overrepresented when it comes to certain types of crime. I was desperately insisting to Sky and BBC, can you at least mention, for instance, that a quarter of sexual assault convictions last year were foreign nationals, a quarter of rape convictions last year were foreign nationals. They didn't go anywhere near that. So they were just looking to undermine the arguments that are very well established now, the data which is very well established, to still try and, I don't know whether it's to keep harmony or to just play devil's advocate or to just really frustrate the arguments that are now winning, that there is social costs as well associated with immigration. Anyway, it was a completely scandalous state of affairs. Thankfully, because no one really watches Sky News anymore and no one serious really listens to the BBC anymore, it doesn't seem to have sunk into the public psyche as much as they probably hoped it would. And I think that's a very important thing. And we will be putting out a lot more statistics and data in the coming days, in the next couple of weeks, which will further prove that there is an undoubted link between immigration and crime. So,
but you see, yeah, I mean, if you're kind of working and moving in the area that we on the whole are around here, in Westminster and politics and all of that, some things seem very, very clear and obvious. There is still this huge sort of barrier, if you like, to the outside world and the rest of the country, which to an extent that barrier is actually the mainstream media still. And I was just wondering, take that guy who phoned you and or it's happened to all of us, right? What would you say is their motivation? I would say that they are politically motivated.
Undoubtedly, the way this individual at Sky News conducted himself, lying to the ONS, trying to bounce us into providing a response overnight and then not picking up the phone, the way he was fabricating and picking and choosing the data sets to try and undersell the scale of the overrepresentation of migrants in sexual assault convictions, is from a place of, these facts make me feel uncomfortable. I wish they don't exist. I'm going to squeeze and strain and pull every other arm of the lever that I can get my hands on to try and discredit these statistics. I think it's something that undoubtedly comes from a sense of wanting validation from his peers, no doubt, wanting a sense of having done something just and something to calm the community tensions which are justifiably existing at the moment. I think when people are seeing this endless stream now we're seeing of asylum seekers, illegal migrants being, charged with sexual assaults on children.
It's a daily thing now.
It's a drip every single day, and another piece in the papers today as well, showing a huge number of charges from a small number of asylum seeker hotels. So this is something that they can't fight. They are a bit like King Canute trying to push back, although they're certainly no royalty in my eyes. Trying to push back the tide. They really are up against it, but I think what we had to experience was really indicative of the sheer depths of disingenuousness, the way that the state kind of pulled ranks and tried to fight against unequivocal statistics, and just people flexing the clout that they do still hold in society. I mean, fortunately, Sky's reputation is at rock bottom, the BBC's reputation is at rock bottom, so they're perhaps not taken as seriously as they were 10 to 15 years ago, but they do still undoubtedly hold that sway, and they are still seen by some, although a dwindling number, as arbiters of the truth. I think I can now personally attest that they are not the arbiters of the truth, and what they have done when it comes to migrant crime stats is nothing short of an abandonment of their duties as journalists.
Yeah.